I knew something was off the moment I stepped outside and saw Karen's car floating 10 feet in the air, morning sun glinting off its undercarriage, tires spinning lazily in a scene so absurd my half-asleep brain nearly fried. Then came the scream, a shrill, rage-fueled wail that could have shattered glass. "What have you done?" Karen stood at my driveway's edge, clutching her phone like she was about to call in a drone strike, her SUV dangling like a carnival prize. And for the first time in weeks, satisfaction surged through me. If she thought this was bad, she had no clue what was coming. 3 weeks earlier, I'd moved into this neighborhood, naive enough to think it'd be peaceful. A good job, a house I loved, and dreams of stress-free coffee on my porch. But I hadn't counted on Karen, the HOA's self-appointed queen, a tyrant who ruled with an iron clipboard. I met her on day one, unloading boxes, when she materialized like a health inspector, eyeing my property for flaws. "Welcome to the neighborhood. I'm Karen, head of the HOA. We have rules here," she said, her tone pure traffic cop menace, handing me a list of violations. Chipped mailbox paint, a too bright porch light, and my unauthorized garden gnome, which she demanded I remove like it was toxic waste. I laughed, big mistake. Her lips thinned, eyes flashing something dangerous, and I knew I made an enemy. Petty annoyances followed, like HOA fines slipped into my mailbox for non-existent breaches or her hawk-eyed watch over my trash cans, itching to report me for rolling them out a minute early. It was irritating but manageable, until the driveway incident when I stepped out one morning, coffee in hand, to find her massive SUV parked smack in my space. Assuming a mix-up, I knocked on her door, politely asking her to move. "Oh," she smirked, "I meant to tell you community parking," claiming some non-existent HOA bylaw allowed overflow in driveways. I'd read the rules, no such thing existed. "Karen," I said, straining to stay calm, "this is my private property," but she shrugged. "You don't own the neighborhood," and slammed the door. Hell week began. Her car blocked my driveway daily, forcing me to park on the street like a guest in my own home. I reported it to the HOA. Useless. Since she was the HOA, complaints vanished, and even a tow truck driver bylaid admitting she'd make our lives miserable, leaving me fuming, desperate for a fix. As an engineer, I build solutions, and Karen had parked over my next one. For nights, I worked in secret, ordering parts, reinforcing my driveway, installing a hydraulic car lift. Meant for auto shops, but here, it'd solve my Karen problem. The morning of truth arrived, her SUV squatting in my space again. I stepped into my garage, flipped the switch, and with a soft hum, the lift purred to life, raising her car steadily until it hovered 10 feet up. I admired my work, grinning, when her legendary scream erupted. She stormed out, pointing at her airborne SUV, face crimson. "What the hell is this?" I sipped my coffee. "Looks like community parking," and she lost it. "Put it down now. You can't do this." I pulled out the HOA bylaws. Nothing here about lifts on private property, just like nothing about parking in my driveway. And her eye twitched as neighbors peeked out, stifling grins at her meltdown. Karen paced furiously, dialing her phone as her SUV swayed 10 feet up, barking, "I'm calling the HOA," while I leaned against my garage, sipping coffee. "Oh, I think you should. I've got complaints of my own." Neighbors gathered, smirking behind hands, relishing her unraveling. Everyone had tasted her nonsense, and this was their quiet revenge. Minutes later, HOA board members rolled up, Karen stomping toward them, pointing at her floating car. "He did this. He broke the rules." Frank, an older guy with a wry grin, squinted at the lift. "Actually, Karen, I don't think there's a rule against this." And she turned purple, shrieking, "It's unsafe. He could have damaged my car." I shrugged. "Good thing I recorded everything. Security cams caught it all. If there's damage, we'll see exactly how it happened." Her mouth flapped like a fish, eyes darting to my blinking garage camera. She was cornered, and she knew it. The board muttered, then Frank turned to me. "Lower the car, Jake." I crossed my arms. "Only if Karen signs a document swearing never to park in my driveway again." And she erupted, ranting, but the HOA had had enough. They pressed her to sign, her hand trembling with rage as she scrawled her name. I flipped the switch. The lift hummed, her SUV descending like a defeated spaceship, tires kissing pavement. She leapt in, peeled out, leaving tire marks and wounded pride. I watched her go, savoring victory, but deep down, I knew Karen wouldn't slink away quietly. She'd rather torch the neighborhood than lose gracefully. Next morning, my driveway was clear. No screams, no notices, just eerie silence that set my nerves on edge. Karen wasn't gone, she was scheming, and by noon her retaliation hit. A white sedan pulled up, a cheap-suited man with a clipboard stepping out. Zoning commission complained about unapproved structural mods. I smirked, classic Karen, going nuclear with red tape since she couldn't outwit me. I led him to the lift. Where's the violation? He frowned. Installed recently. Yep, fully legal. Checked all zoning laws. Handing him pristine permits I'd prepped knowing this neighborhood's insanity. He flipped through, sighed. Everything's in order, no violation. And Karen, spying from her blinds, burst out. You're letting him get away with it. The inspector pinched his nose. Ma'am, it's legal, nothing I can do. And she stomped. It's dangerous, he lifted my car. He turned to me. Did you damage it? Nope, I said. Got footage if she wants to sue, happy to share it in court. Karen's jaw snapped shut, her plan crumbling. The inspector bolted, desperate to escape, and I thought that'd be it. Wrong. That evening an HOA email landed. Violations galore. Grass 0.2 inches too high. House color off palette. Porch light causing light pollution. Pure nonsense. Karen weaponizing her HOA clout to bury me in fines. For 2 days I played whack-a-mole, squashing one fine only for another to pop up. Her bureaucracy drowning me, until a call from Frank, an HOA board member, changed everything. Off the record, Frank said, voice low, we're sick of Karen, but she's got too much pull. If someone got proof of her breaking HOA rules, it'd be useful. I grinned. He'd handed me gold. For days, I stalked her violations. An illegal bird fountain, a too-high fence, her out-of-state car breaking bylaws from weeks in my driveway. I gathered photos, mailed them anonymously to the board, and 2 days later, chaos hit. Karen stormed the HOA office, raging about a snitch, but her own rule-breaking piled fines on her, flipping her weapon against her. She fought, screamed, threatened lawsuits, but the board turned, ousting her at the next meeting. Her power gone, my fines revoked, victory sweet. The night after Karen's HOA ousting, I sat on my porch, beer in hand, the neighborhood lighter, freer. No more fines, no clipboard tyranny, just peace for the first time since moving in. Her reign was over, her fines against me and others wiped out, and I felt the wind deep in my bones. But her whispered threat lingered. I'm not done. A chill threading through the calm, though I brushed it off, telling myself she was powerless, bluffing after her fall. I should have known better. A week later, I came home from work to a tow truck outside, my driveway empty. Panic hit until I saw my car hooked up, about to be hauled off. I sprinted over. What the hell going on? The driver, a bored guy in his 40s, flipped his clipboard. Vehicle violation. Abandonment. Hasn't moved in 72 hours. That was a lie. I'd driven it that morning, and then I spotted her across the street, fake-checking her mailbox, a smug smirk curling her lips. Karen at it again. I forced calm. This is a mistake. My security cams prove it moved today, pulling up the footage on my phone, showing me leaving for work. The driver studied it, sighed, guess that's that, and started unhooking my car. Karen's smile vanished. She stormed over. He's lying. He faked that footage. It's been there for days. He raised a hand. Lady, he's got proof. That's enough for me. And she turned red. You can't let him get away with it. Exasperated, he muttered. I've got other jobs. Finished unhooking and drove off, Karen fuming. This isn't over. I laughed. You keep saying that, but it sure feels like it is. And she stormed off, plotting her next move. Sure enough, she escalated. Next morning, my water was off. Bill paid. I called the company. They said someone reported my house vacant, requesting a shutoff, and I didn't need to guess who. 2 hours to fix it, but I was done. Karen had crossed the line, and I was ending this for good. I spent days watching her, nodding every move, digging into real neighborhood rules, not her made-up ones. Then I found it. Her backyard had an unapproved custom patio deck stretching past the legal property line. HOA rules demanded demolition for unpermitted boundary breaches, and Karen, rule stickler extraordinaire, had never filed for approval. I sat on it a day, then anonymously reported it to the city zoning office, setting the trap. 2 days later, inspectors swarmed her house. I watched from my porch as she argued, flailed, claimed the deck predated her move-in, but they measured, checked records, and handed her a demolition order plus a fat fine. She lost it, screaming, threatening lawsuits. But the inspectors didn't budge, and the next week was pure bliss. A demolition crew tore her precious deck apart, piece by piece, her backyard kingdom crumbling as I sipped coffee, satisfaction warming me. The neighborhood watched her unravel, powerless, fined, humiliated, and I figured that'd be her breaking point. I was wrong. Late one night, a metallic clink jolted me. I checked my cameras. Karen in my yard shaking a spray paint can, ready to strike. I stepped outside. She froze, eyes wide, caught red-handed, then dropped the can and bolted, but not fast enough. I'd already called the cops. They arrived in 10 minutes, reviewed the footage, and marched to her door, arresting her for trespassing and vandalism as she shrieked about setups and lawsuits. "You think you've won?" she snarled from the squad car, eyes blazing. I smiled. "No, Karen, I know I have," and they drove off, her threats echoing into the night. Karen was released the next morning, but the damage was done. Her arrest for trespassing and vandalism stripped her of any remaining clout. Neighbors who'd once tolerated her now dodged her like a plague, her credibility torched. 2 weeks later, a for sale sign stabbed her front yard. I sat on my porch with a cold drink, watching the moving truck roll up, her boxes loaded without a glance back. She was gone, and the neighborhood exhaled, a dark cloud finally lifting. People chatted more, smiled wider, the HOA shedding its dictatorial edge. Freedom tasted sweet, like we'd all broken a curse. That weekend, neighbors threw a party, someone baking a cake with ding-dong, the witches gone in frosting. I took a bite, grinning as one asked, "What'll you do with that hydraulic lift now?" "Maybe patent it," I quipped, and laughter rang out, the first real peace I'd felt since moving in. The saga started weeks back when Karen's car first floated, a hydraulic masterpiece born from her driveway tyranny. She'd parked her SUV in my space daily, claiming fake community parking rules, smirking as I begged her to move. I'd built the lift in secret, an engineer's revenge, and raised her car skyward, her scream echoing as she realized she'd lost. She signed a deal to never park there again, but her spite didn't quit. Zoning complaints, HOA fines, even a tow attempt on my car, all thwarted by my prep and cameras. Then I flipped it, exposing her rule-breaking deck, watching it crumble under a demolition crew while she raged. That night with the spray paint was her last stand, caught, arrested, undone, and now she was history. Looking back, it was absurd. A gnome-hatting HOA queen undone by her own game. She'd rolled in on day one with her clipboard, nitpicking my mailbox, my light, my trash cans, escalating to driveway invasions that pushed me to the edge. I'd tried reason, complaints, even tow trucks. Nothing worked until the lift, a perfect jab that sparked her downfall, her counterattacks. Red tape, water shutoffs, only dug her deeper, my evidence piling up until her deck sealed her fate. The arrest was the cherry on top, her snarl from the squad car a final, hollow threat. She'd lost everything. Power, pride, her precious backyard kingdom, and I'd won not just for me, but for every neighbor she'd find over nothing. The lift still sat in my driveway, a quiet monument to the war. I'd toyed with dismantling it, but it felt like a badge now, proof I'd outsmarted her at her own rules. Karen had wanted control, a neighborhood bent to her whims, but she'd underestimated me, an engineer with a knack for solutions and a stubborn streak to match hers. She'd stormed off that first defeat, vowing revenge, and she'd tried, city inspectors, fake violations, petty sabotage. But every move backfired, her hypocrisy exposed, her grip slipping until she had no choice but to flee. The for sale sign was her surrender, and the party cake was our victory lap, a neighborhood reborn, tyrant-free. I leaned back, sipping my drink, replaying her exit. No wave, no glare, just a ghost fatting down the street. The lift hummed faintly in my mind, a reminder of how far she'd pushed me and how far I'd pushed back. "Patent it," they'd laughed, but maybe it wasn't a joke. Karen proofing could be a business. For now, though, I'd settle for this. Coffee on my porch, gnome in my yard, and a driveway all mine, no floating cars required. Weeks after Karen's exodus, the neighborhood settled into a rhythm I hadn't known it could have. Morning joggers waved. Kids played without HOA citations, and my gnome stood proud, unchallenged by clipboard-wielding tyrants. I'd sip coffee on my porch, the hydraulic lift gleaming in the driveway like a silent sentinel, a relic of the war that freed us. Neighbors still chuckled about it, some suggesting I rented out for petty revenge, others just grateful Karen's reign was a memory. Her for sale sign lingered a bit longer, then vanished when a new family moved in, a quiet couple with a dog, no SUVs in sight, and the street felt whole again, her shadow shrinking with each passing day. But her parting whisper, "I'm not done," itched at me, a nagging echo I couldn't fully shake. It started with that lift, a desperate fix for her driveway takeover. She'd parked there daily, smirking community parking nonsense, forcing me to the street. My complaints drowned in her HOA stranglehold until I'd engineered her car skyward, her scream the soundtrack to my first win. She signed away that privilege, but retaliated hard, zoning inspectors, fake fines, a tow truck for my car, even cutting my water, each move foiled by my cameras and prep. I turned her rules against her, exposing that illegal deck, watching it fall as she unraveled. Her spray paint stunt landed her in cuffs, the final blow. She'd lost her throne, her cred, and now her house, fleeing to lick her wounds elsewhere. I'd underestimated her at first. Her petty mailbox gripes and trash can stakeouts seemed laughable until they weren't. She'd ruled like a dictator, fines her scepter, the HOA her army, and I'd been the fool laughing at her gnome ban. That driveway stunt flipped the script. I'd built the lift in secret, raised her car, and watched her crumble, neighbors quietly cheering as she signed my terms. Her revenge spree tested me, city red tape, sabotage. But I'd learned her game, dug up her deck violation, and let the city finish her. The arrest was icing, her snarl from the squad car a dying gasp. Now, with her gone, I wondered if that whisper was just bravado or a promise. One evening, a letter slid into my mailbox. No stamp, just my name in sharp, familiar scrawl. I opened it, pulse ticking up. Nice try, Jake. Enjoy your peace for now. No address, no clue where she'd landed, but the chill returned. She wasn't done, not in her mind. I tossed it, figuring it was a bluff, but installed extra cameras anyway, Karen proofing, round 2. Days passed quiet, then a neighbor mentioned seeing her car cruise by late one night, slow and deliberate. I checked my footage. Nothing concrete, just a shadow at the street's edge. Enough to keep me wary, not enough to act, but her ghost hovered, stubborn as ever. The lift stayed put, a practical joke turned legend. I'd crank it up sometimes, testing it, half expecting her to roll back with some new scheme. Maybe she'd buy the house again, start over, but the new couple's dog barked at nothing one night, and I wondered. Her downfall replayed in my head, screaming at inspectors, raging as her deck splintered, cuffed in my yard, each loss stripping her power until she'd fled. Yet that note, that drive-by, hinted at a mind still plotting. I sipped my beer, eyeing the gnome, and grinned. Let her try. I'd built a lift once, I could build worse, and this time I'd be ready. The neighborhood hummed with a newfound ease, the lift in my driveway a quirky landmark. Kids pointed at it, neighbors swapped Karen tailies over beers, and I'd crank it up now and then, grinning as they cheered. It was my trophy, a steel testament to outlasting her reign. Her note, enjoy your peace for now, sat in a drawer, a taunt I refused to dwell on, though that rumored late-night drive-by kept my cameras rolling. The new couple's dog still barked at shadows, but no SUV appeared, no spray paint rattled. Just quiet days, my gnome unbothered, coffee uninterrupted. I'd beaten her at her game, lifted her car, exposed her deck, watched her cuffed, and she'd fled, tail tucked, house sold. Yet her whisper gnawed, a splinter of doubt I masked with routine, telling myself she was done. It started with that first clash, her clipboard ambush over chipped paint and illegal gnomes, escalating to her SUV squatting in my driveway, her fake rules choking me until I'd engineered the lift, her scream my reward. She fought back, zoning ploys, fines, water shutoffs, each jab parried by my prep, her deck's demolition my counterpunch, her arrest the knockout. She'd lost her HOA crown, her backyard empire, her grip on us all, and I'd savored every fall. Now, weeks later, her absence felt like victory, but that note hinted at a mind too stubborn to quit. Karen didn't lose gracefully, she schemed, and I braced for the next round, however faint the signs. Then a month post-move, oddities crept in. A package arrived, no return address, just a cheap plastic gnome inside, spray-painted with K on its hat. I laughed it off, but my gut tightened. Her style subtle and spiteful. Next, my trash cans vanished overnight, reappearing a block away, lids askew. Petty, sure, but deliberate. Her scent lingered in these pranks, testing me, poking the bear. I checked my cameras. Grainy footage caught a hooded figure, too vague to pin, but the timing screamed Karen. I didn't call the cops. Yet. Just doubled my lenses, rigged motion lights, and waited, knowing she'd escalate if this was her opening gambit. One morning, my mailbox dangled open, a new HOA notice inside, unsigned, claiming my lift violated aesthetic standards, demanding removal within days. The real HOA had disbanded her rules, so this was fake, her handwriting unmistakable in the sharp, angry slant. I smirked, pathetic but bold. She'd lost her board, so now she forged solo, hopping I'd flinch. I didn't tossing it with her note, but her persistence irked me. That night the dog's barking spiked. A car idled down the street, lights off, too far for my cams to catch. I stepped out, saw tail lights vanish, and knew she was circling, probing, her "I'm not done" sharpening into focus. I'd underestimated her venom once. Her petty fines and driveway stunts had seemed laughable until they weren't, her power real until I'd flipped it. The lift had humiliated her, the deck crushed her, the arrest shamed her, but she'd never surrendered, just retreated to plot. Now these jabs, gnomes, trash, fake notices were her clawing back, small but pointed, a promise of worse. I leaned on the lift, its hum a comfort, and decided enough was enough. She'd lost the war, but I'd end these skirmishes. I'd built a trap before, I could again. Something bigger, final. And as the street quieted, I grinned, ready for her next move, my counter already brewing. Corinne's petty pranks piled up, plastic gnomes multiplied in my yard, trash cans wandered nightly, fake HOA notices thickened my mailbox. But I held firm, cameras humming, lights glaring, waiting for her to overplay her hand. Her "I'm not done" wasn't bluffing anymore, it was a slow burn, and I'd let it smolder, plotting my endgame. The neighborhood noticed, whispers of "she's back" floated over fences, the new couple's dog a barking alarm, but no one saw her, just felt her ghost. I'd beaten her once, lifted her car, raised her deck, got her cuffed. And she'd fled, house sold, power stripped, yet here she was, a shadow nipping at my heels. I'd underestimated her spite, her need to win, and now I'd finish it not with petty jabs, but a knockout she couldn't dodge. It began with her tyranny, clipboard assaults over gnomes and lights, her SUV choking my driveway with fake community parking lies. I'd built the lift, raised her car, forced her signature to stop, and grinned as neighbors cheered her scream. She'd hit back inspectors, fines, sabotage. All foiled by my prep, her decks fall my trump card, her arrest my victory lap. She'd lost her HOA throne, her backyard, her grip, and I'd thought her gone. Until that note, those drive-bys, these pranks proved her venom still flowed. I'd won the war, but she'd started a guerrilla fight, and I'd end it. Not with her rules, but mine, an engineer's precision turned weapon. One night the pranks spiked. My lift jolted to life, groaning under a load. I checked my cams. A grainy figure had dumped scrap metal on it, bending a piston, Corinne, no doubt, escalating to damage. I filed a police report, footage too blurry for proof, but it lit a fire. I'd had enough. Next morning, a new notice claimed my damaged lift was a safety hazard, her scrawl screaming through the forgery. I grinned, perfect, she'd given me bait. I rigged the lift with a louder alarm, a hidden tracker, and a decoy switch. Let her try again, I'd catch her clean this time, no escape. Days passed quiet, then the dog howled. A car idled, lights off, and my trap waited, ready to snap. At 2 a.m., the alarm blared. Cams caught her, hood up, sneaking to the lift, crowbar in hand. The tracker pinged her car a block away, the decoy switch tripped, flooding her in spotlight as sirens wailed. I'd called the cops the second it triggered. She froze, crowbar clattering, then bolted, but police nabbed her mid-sprint. Trespassing, vandalism, caught red-handed, no denials this time. "You set me up," she screamed as they cuffed her, eyes wild. "You'll pay." I crossed my arms, "Told you I'd win," and she snarled, dragged to the squad car, her fight finally snuffed. The next day, charges stuck, jail loomed, her sale sign still fresh, and I savored the silence, her ghost exorcised. She'd ruled with fines, terrorized with rules, lost it all to my lift, my evidence, my patience. Her deck's ruin, her arrests, her exit hadn't tamed her, but this did. The tracker, the trap, the cops were my checkmate. Neighbors toasted me, Corinne-proofed for good, and I nodded. The lift stayed, dented but proud, a warning to any tyrant dumb enough to try. Her "I'm not done" died in cuffs, her war lost to an engineer who'd outbuilt her spite. I sipped my beer, gnome gleaming, driveway mine. Peace, at last, hard won and permanent. Corinne's second arrest was the final nail. Charged with trespassing and vandalism, she faced jail time, her "for sale" sign a mocking epitaph as the neighborhood buzzed with relief. I stood on my porch, coffee in hand, the lift's dented frame a battle scar, watching her legacy crumble. She'd ruled with an HOA iron fist, fines for gnomes, driveway invasions, until I'd flipped her world with a hydraulic hum, her scream my first victory. She'd clawed back with inspectors, pranks, sabotage, but my cameras, my traps, my patience outlasted her deck's fall and cuffs her undoing. Now she was gone, really gone, hauled off snarling, "You'll pay." but powerless, her war lost to an engineer who turned her rules into rubble. The street healed fast. Kids biked without fear, neighbors grilled without notices, the new couple's dog quieted, no longer sniffing her ghost. The HOA, gutted of her influence, rewrote itself into something sane, and my gnome stood tall, a middle finger to her reign. Her pranks, plastic gnomes, trash can games, fake notices, faded to jokes, her last stand with that crowbar a laughable flop. I'd rigged the lift, caught her in spotlight and sirens, and watched cops drag her off. Checkmate, no rematch. The ding-dong, the witch is gone. Cake wasn't just a party gag. It was gospel, and I savored every bite. The lift my medal, my driveway, my kingdom. Looking back, she'd ambushed me day one. Clipboard swinging, banning my light, my paint, my peace. Escalating to that SUV squat that birthed the lift, her airborne defeat my opening shot. She'd raged, zoning ploys, water shutoffs, a tow attempt, all dashed by my prep, her deck's demolition my masterstroke. The spray paint night pushed me, but this last trap broke her. Tracker pinging, alarm blaring, her caught in the act, no excuse left. She'd whispered, "I'm not done." Sent notes, cruised by, but each jab sank her deeper, her spite no match for my steel. I'd won not just for me, but for every fine soul she'd tormented, her exit our freedom. The lift stayed dented, humming, a legend. Neighbors dubbed it Karenbane, suggesting I bronze it, but I liked it raw, proof I'd outbuilt her madness. She wanted a perfect fiefdom, me her first rebel. She got a war instead, losing her throne, her deck, her house, her grip. That note, those drive-bys, her final crowbar swing were desperate gasps, crushed by my trap's precision. I'd underestimated her venom once, laughed at her gnome hate, her fines, until she'd pushed me to fight. Now she was a cautionary tale, her sail sign a surrender flag, the neighborhood mine to enjoy, tyrant-free. I leaned back, beer cold, sun warm, replaying her end, cuffs clicking, her snarl fatting as the squad car rolled. The lift purred in my mind, a quiet giant that toppled a queen. Patent it, they'd laughed, but it was more my line in the sand, my piece forged in steel and spite. Corinne proofed I'd called it, and it stuck. Her you'll pay a hollow echo, her war lost to a guy with a wrench and a plan. The gnome winked in the light, the driveway stretched empty, and I grinned. Coffee never tasted better, victory never felt sweeter. And if she ever dared return, I'd be ready, lift primed, cameras rolling, game over before it began.